next here, and we've talked about this, and next is the physiology of the menses. I want you to pay attention now because this is medicine, not law. And if okay, all right. So what is this? The uterus, fallopian tubes, ovaries. Okay, physiology of the menses, lunaception, shortest period, longest period, shortest purity. But first of all, what is a cycle? What is a menstrual cycle? And what happens? Okay. Okay. So what happens is, this is the beginning of the menstrual cycle. Let us say it lasts 7 days, because a menstrual cycle from a medical standpoint is anywhere between 3 to 7, on average, between 3 to 7. Could be less, could be more, but it's about 3 to 7 days. Let us say it is 7 days, and let us say that this period here will be 14, and this will be 14, and ovulation happens here, and then this will be the beginning of the next cycle. Beginning of the next cycle. What happens? This phase is fixed at 14. This phase is variable. So one cycle is 28 days, medically speaking. The Prophet ﷺ, when he spoke to Hamna bint Jahsh, he told her to تحيضي 6 أيام أو 7 أيام في علم الله. That consider yourself to be menstruating 6 or 7 days. And then you can fast and pray for 23 or 24 days. So if you combine 6 and 24, 30, 7 and 23, 30. So the Prophet ﷺ was saying to her, it's about every month that it happens. What is a lunar, and we're talking about lunar months here, not solar months. Lunar months is about 29.5, right? Days. Medicine is saying it's about 28 days on average, but medicine is also saying it is anywhere from 21 to 35 days. From 21 to 35 days. The period is anywhere from 21 to 35 days. What happened is a group of women took themselves and went out to the wilderness to regulate their periods. Basically, to avoid any exposure to artificial lights and regulate their periods. And it's about 28 women. And they were all able to have their period completely synced to the lunar months. I'm going to ask you to go to the wilderness, but just, to reconcile between this, the dominant position within medicine, 28 days versus 29 and a half days for the lunar months. But medicine is not really strict about this. It's not saying that it's only 28 days. For some women it could be 21. For some women it could be 35. For some women it could be much less than 21. For some women it could be much more than 35. It just these are numbers where, normal is 21 to 35. Like a cycle that happens every 21 days is normal. A cycle that happens every 35 days is normal. Anything in between is also normal. On average, it's 28 days according to medicine. This phase between ovulation and the next period is more fixed at about 14 days. This phase is variable. So if you see changes here, it will be in this phase. What is this phase? This phase is called the proliferative phase or the follicular phase? The follicular phase. So you have follicles here inside the ovary, and each follicle will have an ovum. The follicle ruptures, releases the ovum. The ovum swims here and enters the fallopian tube. It either meets a sperm or does not meet a sperm. Okay, so this happens during ovulation. The follicle, and you have like millions of them. So you have a follicle that will rupture, and then after it ruptures, it will release the ovum. The ovum will swim to enter the fallopian tube to meet the sperm or not meet the sperm. During this time, progesterone is being released. Progesterone is being released. Maybe I should start here. Let me start here. So it's happening here. This is the beginning. In this phase, it's called the proliferative phase or the follicular phase. Proliferative or follicular. Estrogen is being released. Estrogen is being released to do what? To build up the endometrial lining of the uterus. The endometrial lining of the uterus. So the lining of the uterus is being built up by estrogen. And it's called proliferative phase because it's proliferating. The lining of the uterus is getting thicker. Okay. Now, it keeps on getting thicker and thicker. And the follicle is producing the estrogen. The follicle ruptures, releases the ova, and turns into the corpus luteum. When that happens, the corpus luteum releases progesterone. Progesterone supports the lining and causes more proliferation of the lining of the uterus. And it waits for a signal that pregnancy happened. If the signal comes that pregnancy happens, progesterone continues to be secreted and continues to support the lining of the uterus, and then implantation will take place, and then you will have the placenta, and pregnancy. If by day 26 or 27 of the cycle, we're getting to this point here, and it does not receive a hormonal signal, the corpus luteum does not receive a hormonal signal that pregnancy happened, what happens is you will have rapid deterioration, rapid drop on the progesterone, rapid deterioration of the lining of the uterus, and then it breaks apart and it comes out, it flows. Haid means what? Flowing. So then you have the flow. And it's about 20 to 80 milliliters throughout the cycle of flow. 20 to 80 milliliters throughout the cycle of blood flow. This blood flow has special characteristics because it is not simply blood flowing from a vessel. It is the inner lining of the uterus breaking apart and flowing out. It has endometrial tissues, and because it stays in the uterus for some time before it comes out, when it comes out, it does not clot because it had already clotted inside and the clot broke apart. So there is no more clotting outside. And because it stays in the uterus and it's mixed with tissues, it is thicker than the blood that comes out of a vein. And it is darker than the blood that comes out of a vein. So it says باللون والريح وبالتألم ورقة وغلظة ميز الدم. So these are different qualities between this type of blood and bleeding from a vessel. Lawn, color. ريح, odor. It has like an odor, a special odor. تألم means pain, cramps, menstrual cramps. رقة وغلظة, thickness. The menstrual blood is discerned. So it is thicker, it is darker, it has a special odor, and it does not clot outside, and it is accompanied by pain. It is accompanied by menstrual cramps versus the sort of non-menstrual bleeding. So this is the follicular or proliferative phase. This is, we can just call it pre-ovulatory. And this is post-ovulatory. And this is ovulation. Women can also figure out when ovulation happens because they will have like a slight increase in their temperature if they are following, if they're basically monitoring this. Usually you have about 0.3 to 0.5 degrees less than your average, and it goes back and rises around this time. So during the cycle itself, your temperature will be about 0.3 to 0.5 less than your usual. Now, many times you have no ovulation. So, no ovulation. When there is no ovulation, the whole thing is messed up. The whole thing becomes chaotic. Anovulatory cycles are very chaotic cycles. And you could have interrupted bleeding, intermittent bleeding, because it's anovulatory cycle. You could also have intermittent bleeding if you have different conditions, fibroids, if you have psychological stress, if you have rapid changes in weight. Many reasons can cause irregularity and intermittent bleeding. Many reasons cause irregularity and intermittent bleeding. But this is basically the sort of the usual cycle. We start by bleeding, it lasts 3 to 7 days. Then, if it lasts 7 days, 7 days later, ovulation takes place. And then the lining of the uterus keeps on basically proliferating and basically getting ready for conception and implantation, getting ready for the fetus. And when it receives no news of conception and implantation, it starts to break apart, and then menstruation happens by the 29th day, after 28. This is basically, this day is the 29th. And that's according to medicine. According to Fiqh, it is the 30th to the 31st is the beginning of the next cycle. I hope this is clear. So what is the shortest period of a cycle? Shortest period of menstruation? No, not of the cycle. And 21 days is not the shortest. This is basically the normal in medicine. The range of normal cycles in medicine is 21 to 35. What is the shortest, basically, duration of menstruation? 3 days, Hanafi. 1 day, majority. one gush of blood, a few people, Malikis and the choice of Ibn Taymiyyah, one gush of blood, one gush of blood, one episode of bleeding, or one gush of blood. Not one drop, one gush or one episode of bleeding, even if it is less than 1 day. What does medicine support? One gush of blood. Will we go by what medicine supports? No, we will not. Because it will make life difficult for you. So we will pick the 1 day. Why? Because if it is one gush of blood, and I recently changed my mind about this, because I used to give the Hanbali fatwa. I changed my mind about this. If it is one gush of blood, you will be having to monitor, from always monitoring for jufuf or for dryness or al-qassa al-bayda or the white discharge, however you determine the end of your period. So we will have to just, accept 1 day. It's the position of the majority, that the least duration of haid would be 1 day. 1 day. We will also accept that you're not pure until 1 day had basically lapsed from, or 1 day, unless you have been pure for 1 day. You're not pure until you have been pure for 1 day, except if you see a definitive marker of purity, such as that white discharge. Like if you know that there is a particular white discharge that comes out when you end your period, such as having a regular habit of 5 days and your 5 days ended, and now you're pure. How do you determine that you are pure? Is by, you don't have to worry about cotton, gauze, to put gauze in, not inside the vagina, but inside the vulva. Put gauze and see if anything comes out. If the gauze comes out white, then that is a sign of purity. If the gauze comes out other colors, brownish, reddish, like yellowish, dark yellowish stuff, then you're not pure yet. Wait until the gauze comes out white, or until the white discharge comes out. If you get that white discharge, not all women get the white discharge. Now, in the Hanbali mazhab, if you're pure for 1 hour, you're pure. The problem with this is it could be too demanding. I used to actually say that if you're pure for 1 hour, you're pure, because that's actually the most sort of traceable to the companions. Ibn Abbas said, if you're pure for 1 hour, you're pure. That's why the Hanbalis picked this up. But there is another report within the Hanbali madhab that it would take 1 day to determine that you are pure, except if there are definitive markers. Definitive markers means what? You have a habit, a regular habit, and you know that it ends after 5 days, and it's been 5 days, or the white discharge comes out. And this is a definitive marker for you. If there is no definitive marker that your period ended, then you do not need to be basically monitoring every 1 hour or so. And you not need to make ghusl if you have been pure for 1 hour, because you could get more blood, and then you become pure for 1 hour, and then you make ghusl, and you get more blood, and so on, and it could be exhausting. So 1 day is okay. And actually, al-Mardawi and al-Insaf, supported this, and he said that, that Ibn Qudama supported this. He said in Mughni he supported this. And these are all great Hanbali scholars. So although it's not the dominant position in the madhab, but I think that this is the more reasonable position for women. The longest period, so shortest period for haid is what? 1 day. Remember this. There's a lot of disagreement, but we're going by 1 day. The longest period for haid is what? 15, according to the majority. 10, according to the Hanafis. We will go by 10. So why are we going by 10? So medically speaking, can you be menstruating for a couple of months? Yes. A couple of years? Yes. You could continue to menstruate. Basically, if you have unstable endometrium, you could have breakdown of that endometrium. Different parts come down at different times, and they keep on coming down, keep on coming down, they keep on coming down. In fiqh, can we tolerate this? Keep in mind that it is not always bleeding from a vessel. It is the same thing like menstruation. It's breaking down of the endometrial lining of the uterus. Can we tolerate this in fiqh? No, we can't. Therefore, we will have to have a cut-off. How do we have a cut-off in fiqh? We will look for something traceable to the Prophet ﷺ, and that would be the most definitive thing, and we're over. If we don't find something that is clear from the Prophet, traceable to the Prophet, and clear, then we would look for other reports from the Sahaba and so on. Honestly speaking, the Hanafis would have the greatest number of reports, although nothing is traceable to the Prophet ﷺ, nothing is, very solid, but أسعد حظا بالآثار, which means that they have more asar or reports in their favor than other mazahib. 10 days, longest duration of haid. In addition to this, in medicine, what did we say about the duration of haid? 3 to 7 days. 8 to 9 is called the borderline. In medicine, 10 or more is defined as prolonged bleeding. Prolonged bleeding is 10 or more. So it seems that not only the reports, but also medicine is in favor of the Hanafi position. 10 days is the longest duration of menstruation or haid. Shortest duration of purity. Shortest duration of purity, and I may have mentioned it. And shortest and longest. Longest by agreement, unlimited. Unlimited, because the period may end, so it is unlimited. But the shortest duration of purity is what? We said 1 hour, but we said that this will be exhausting. Keep in mind, when they say 1 hour, they do not mean that this would be it in terms of purity. They will require you to make ghusl and to consider that you're pure. But they will still say that the shortest duration of purity, in medicine, it could be 1 hour. Because medicine does not, doesn't have to make categories. Like medicine sees that some bleeding, no bleeding. So no bleeding is purity for medicine. But for fiqh, that doesn't work. So the shortest duration of purity in fiqh is 13 or 15. The majority will say 15. Hanbalis will say 13. Hanbalis are saying 13. because of a particular incident where Ali and Shuraih, decided that like a woman's iddah ended in 1 month. So to end in 1 month, you will have to have 1 day of period, 13 days of purity, 1 day of period, 13 days of purity, 1 day of period. So 1, 1, 1, 3, 3 and 26 is 29, 1 month. Okay. So whether it is 13 or 15, we can go by either number. It is not a big deal. So the shortest duration of purity between 2 cycles is 13. So in fiqh, what is the shortest cycle? 14. 1 day of menstruation, 13 days of purity. 1 day of menstruation, 13 days of purity. Okay. How much time do we have?
11 minutes.
Okay. So let's talk about, we will have to come back and finish this. But I want you to remember one thing. When we talk about istihada, prolonged bleeding, abnormal prolonged bleeding, istihada versus haid, we are not basically we're not addressing this matter unless you exceed the longest duration of haid. If you do not exceed the longest duration of haid, we're not having this discussion. So if you are... Huh?
That might be the next slide. Yeah, step 1 in the next slide, right?
Yeah.
You'll come to it.
Yes. I wanted to say that because sometimes women see that like they have the period for 7 days. 4 of these 7 days look different from the 3 other days. The blood looks different. So they say, well, my period then is 4. Those 3 additional days are not my period. No, all 7 days are your period, because within the zaman al-haid, or the time of haid, the duration of haid, that we will choose to be 10, according to the Hanafis, versus the Jumhur who said 15. Anything you see within the 10 days, keep in mind, 10 days will be separated from the next 10 by what? At least 13 days of purity. At least 13 days of purity. Within the 10 days, anything you see within the 10 days is haid. What do I mean by anything you see? Any color, any colorful discharge. So whether it is, and certainly this is still controversial, like Imam Ibn Hazm would disagree with this, but is it black, red, brown, beige, yellow, any colorful discharge you will see within the 10 days will be considered haid. That is different from the whitish or clearish discharge that is called leukorrhea. And leukorrhea, to get leukorrhea out of the way, let me get leukorrhea out of the way. Leukorrhea is basically like the mucus of the uterus and the vagina. The mucus, like the tears, like the mucus. It is basically a lubricant that is needed for these organs. Leukorrhea, so it's called رطوبة الفرج. It's called vaginal discharge, called رطوبة الفرج, called leukorrhea. Leukorrhea drives certain women crazy because they are told there is disagreement in the mazahib about the purity or impurity of leukorrhea. Even the mazahib that will consider leukorrhea to be pure, it is said that it is the agreement of the four mazahib that it still breaks the wudu. It still breaks the wudu. Keep in mind, leukorrhea is whitish or clearish discharge that comes out, often. That comes out often. It's moisture. It's vaginal moisture that comes out often. I have written a paper on this and I can share it with you. Is it on Muslim Matters? Okay, so I don't remember the exact name now, but vaginal discharge, leukorrhea, I put this and you put my name and the paper would come out. Leukorrhea is inconsequential. عطية said كنا لا نعد الصفرة والكدرة شيء بعد الطهر شيئا. We used to not consider turbid sort of discharge and yellowish discharge after tuhr, after purity. We used to not consider them anything to be anything consequential. So what she's referring to is probably leukorrhea with different qualities of leukorrhea. But leukorrhea is physiological, is normal, and does not basically cause any, is inconsequential to rulings. This is like tears, this is like mucus. It is inconsequential to rulings. Now, I am not taking this lightly because it has been claimed that the four mazahib consider leukorrhea to break the wudu, and to certainly go against what is claimed to be the position of the four mazahib is not a small thing. It's huge, it's enormous, audacious. But if you want to basically see my basically critique of the claim that the four mazahib consider it to break the wudu, and to see my support of the position of, again, an Imam ibn Hazm, who said that leukorrhea is completely inconsequential, the proofs, then please read that paper, and it will give you basically sort of all the details and all of the discussions and the proofs of all parties. So vaginal moisture, vaginal discharge, whether it is clearish or whitish at any time is not a problem. But if it is yellowish or turbid during the time of haid, connected to haid, then it is haid. So I am seeing for 3 days dark blood. I am seeing for 2 days red blood. I am seeing for one day, I am seeing beige or some yellowish stuff. My period is 6 days. My period is 6 days. Now, this yellowish stuff, I am seeing it here. My period ended here, and then I'm seeing yellowish stuff here. Nothing, inconsequential, doesn't matter. I am seeing clearish / whitish here, inconsequential, doesn't matter. Clearish and whitish is always inconsequential. Yellowish or turbid, like beige type, like one sort of shade of brown, light shade of brown. If it is connected to haid, it is haid. If it is separate from haid, it is inconsequential. Inconsequential. Doesn't matter. So again, when we come back, we will talk about istihada, which is prolonged bleeding. But by definition, what we're talking about here is what? A woman who is having bleeding or flow or discharge lasting more than 10 days. Now we will have to figure out what she needs to do, because it can last 25 days, every cycle. It can be continuous, and it can be intermittent, and that's also something that we will have to figure out. Meaning, 2 days pure, 2 days impure, 1 day pure, 3 days impure, 2 days pure, 1 day impure, and so on. So that prolonged or intermittent is what we will discuss inshallah when we come back.